simply have to report this as it's too big a deal not to mention. I'm struggling to believe it myself, but equally, I struggled to believe it last time too, and it turned out to be true. Sure, I struggled to believe it, but I went through said struggle and did manage to believe it, despite how hard it was to grasp. I'm referring to the numbers we heard that Tesla were building 1,600 Model Ys a day in Shanghai back last month. And then when we calculated how many Tesla delivered in October, it came in at around 1,500, so it basically turned out to be true. Again, as hard as it was for many to believe. Well, we're now hearing it again. According to the YouTuber Jason Yang, that Tesla are now producing over 1,600 Model Ys a day in November, which means my crazy projections for Q4, even my bull case, may have been a little bit pessimistic. But before you get too excited just yet, that is not all we're hearing. Usually I would just tell you, but this is such a big deal, I feel like I want to build up some anticipation and throw in a bit of showmanship even. But there is a lot more to this story, so keep watching, as it really is a big deal. Firstly, last time I speculated on those reports and rumours, there were comments saying that I was wrong or it had been disproven, but it turned out to be real. It was so hard to fathom, 1,600 Model Ys a day, 584,000 a year, almost 3 times the alleged capacity we were initially told. The market still has yet to get to grips with this, or come to understand it. They won't react until they see the actual delivery numbers for the quarter. They're still estimating around 260,000 or something. My bear case was almost 300,000. Tesla have about tripled their alleged capacity for Model Y in Shanghai. Now factor that information into their new factories, the ones that have been built after a lot more experience in manufacturing cars and building factories. Shanghai was their first custom factory built for autos. They learned a lot. Add into that front and rear die-casts for the new factories compared to just rear in Shanghai, and structural battery packs, along with a plethora of other advanced manufacturing techniques learned since, and other economies of scale, like battery factories on site. When you think about this, then we can't begin to imagine the potential production rates we might see from these new factories. We can only speculate, and those speculative numbers seem very high, despite also seeming conservative relative to Shanghai. Just look at the size of Texas. The market has not factored any of this in. I have, and I bought leaps as a result, and some of my leaps had a 2-year expiry date, meaning I'm giving the market 2 years to work this out for itself. Hopefully it won't take that long, but these are big factories to ramp up, and seeing is believing, at least for the market. But the fact the Model Y in Shanghai is producing so far beyond our expectations. Oh, and this took about 8 months, by the way, from the start of production to hit about triple the alleged capacity. 8 months, if you can believe that. Something which also is in contrary to what Elon has said. He said it takes longer to ramp up than it does to build the factory itself. Yet, we have 3 times the capacity in 8 months, from a factory that took 12 months to build. Oh, wait, what if what he said was true, and they aren't actually finished ramping up the Model Y in Shanghai yet either? So the Model Y had an alleged capacity of 200,000 units a year, but was quite a bit smaller in size than the Model 3 factory in Shanghai. And as a result, the Model 3 had a claimed capacity of 250,000 vehicles a year, 25% more than the Model Y factory, and it correlates to the additional size of the factory. But then why is the Model Y at 1,600 vehicles a day, making twice as many Model 3s at only 800 vehicles a day? That's a good question. Sure, Model Y does use gigapresses, which remove 300 robots from the production line, as we know, but that doesn't mean the Model Y factory should be making about 2.5 times as many vehicles per squared foot as the Model 3. No. I think Tesla just wanted to concentrate on ramping up the Model Y first, as that is their best-selling vehicle with the highest margins. So they prioritized production of the Model Y in Shanghai and left the Model 3 at its 800 units a day in the meantime. But the fact that may have reached what might be capacity for now, then perhaps Tesla are able to get back to improving the Model 3 line and adding some of these improvements that we've seen on the Model Y line onto the 3, adding more shifts, production lines, working hours, more employees. And yes, this could be very true, as we are now hearing reports that the Model 3 line has now hit, get this, 2,000 vehicles a day, even more than the Model Y. And funnily enough, a 25% larger facility making 25% more vehicles. Well, the math seems to line up perfectly there. That's right, you heard it right. Let's say it again. 2,000 Model 3s a day at Shanghai, and now over 1,600 Model Ys a day. A total of over 3,600 vehicles a day, or over 1.3 million a year, just from Shanghai. This is outstanding on every level. It actually still means that Tesla could break 1 million total deliveries for the year. We had 54,000 deliveries in October from Shanghai. Now, if we're at 3,600 a day from there, then that's an additional 220,000, taking us to around 270,000 for the quarter from Shanghai. Add to that an estimated 130,000 from Fremont, and we just hit 400,000, or an annual capacity of 1.6 million. Yes, this does mean we're all going to be very rich, but it also means Tesla are making much faster progress than we initially assumed for the mission of sustainable energy. We have been severely sandbagged. I know it seems extreme, but so did the 1,600 a day, and they did that. And like I say, the Model 3 facility is 25% larger, and this is 25% more vehicles than the Model Y. What does that mean for next year? It means 2 million deliveries likely just for Fremont and Shanghai alone, and then whatever Texas and Berlin can do on top of that. Also, might we wonder that if Shanghai ramped up at such a pace, that we might expect the same from Berlin and Texas, or possibly even more, maybe a lot more of the additional gigapresses and structural battery packs. Are we being sandbagged here too? More than likely, or at least I sure hope so. However, I believe that this ramping up is due to Tesla using LFP batteries. Remember how we hear the Chinese EVs are able to ramp up so much faster? Well, it's because they are less battery constrained using LFP batteries. This is what Tesla are doing. They're producing standard range Model Ys in massive quantities, and now doing the same with standard range Model 3s, to a whole other level than before. Not only that, Tesla are raising their prices with their Chinese models on top of this, which means lower cost and higher prices and much higher margins. Not to mention a higher level of volume production means greater economies of scale. If this is true, then this company could be the biggest company in the world early next year. The delivery numbers will shock the market. The Q4 earnings will see profits like never before. The stock price will hit escape velocity. Add to that all the other events about to unfold. I think this also means that Tesla are purchasing a huge proportion of CATL's batteries, which might be the reason why CATL have been expanding so much and spending so much on growth, because they have guaranteed sales from Tesla. In other words, a huge proportion of the batteries CATL make will be going to Tesla, not the other Chinese EVs. The other Chinese EVs are in no position to make such guaranteed purchase agreements from CATL at any level to make CATL justify such a huge expansion. Tesla is the only one that can do that. Well, BYD probably could afford to as well, but they're making in-house batteries. So bear this in mind. The Chinese battery ramping may predominantly be earmarked for Tesla, and not so much left for the other Chinese EVs, and Tesla will likely use the batteries for energy too. But Tesla might also use them for a standard range Model Y from Berlin and Texas. If Tesla are not going to have the standard range Model Y in those factories, then we may not expect such a large ramp up from those factories next year, and it'll be more dependent on the pace they ramp up the 4680 batteries. Also, I'd like to point out that Tesla using these LFP batteries likely save about 40% on cost per battery pack when compared to the nickel packs they were using previously, or perhaps $3,000 per vehicle, which is about 7% of the car price. In other words, that is roughly 7% more gross margin per car. What I am saying is, despite it being standard range Model 3s and Ys coming out of China, and despite them being the lowest cost models, they still have great margins, which means great profits. All this is going to be felt as early as January when we see the delivery numbers and the Q4 financials. I might have to go ahead and do a super bull case for Q4 now, and I'm guessing you will all want to see that, judging by your comments and how much you want to see the standard bull case. So why not? But go ahead and comment anyway to let me know just how much of a priority I should make it. Just remember, all this is indicative only and going on a rumour, but I have explained how the rumour could very well be true due to the facility being 25% larger. Also, remember, although these numbers are from November, we don't know when November it actually started. So I'll do what I can to actually revise my Q4 estimates for my Super Bowl case to at least make it accurate, rather than just assuming they started at the start of November. It's just very exciting, and I want to share my initial thoughts with all of you on it. Okay, maybe I jumped the gun a little bit on 400,000 for the quarter, as we don't know when November has started, but either way, It might be around 360,000 or so. And as we know, anything over 300,000 is great too. Although now I would feel almost disappointed if it was only 300,000. I think I got my hopes up a bit. Bear in mind, we're going from 240,000 in last quarter. 360,000 would be 50% growth in deliveries quarter over quarter. We can only imagine what it means for profit. Well, at least until I calculate it. Thanks for listening. Please hit the thumbs up and subscribe. You can follow me on Twitter and talk to me on Patreon.